and welcome back to Learning with Liz. So on this week's video, I am going to be kicking off a brand new series which I have created called Let's Talk About Sex. This series basically stemmed from my mind when thinking about how illy educated students can be on sex education because of teachers, the content, just problems around the whole stigmatisation of sex in society in general. So in this series, thinking about the stigmatisation that sex has in society because they think it's taboo, dirty, teachers feel uncomfortable talking about it sometimes, I'm going to be analysing what sex education curriculum is lacking. So each video is basically going to be looking at one of the issues that I feel is lacking really when we think about sex education in school. So my research as a whole, after coming out of the educational system and then going straight back into it really in the teaching form, I decided that I was going to analyse the curriculum from the Department of Education for sex education, and I was going to be asking around people's experiences of sex education, whether that be in a state school or a religious school. The findings that I have collated have all influenced what this series is going to be about. It was all about heteronormativity in sex education, therefore I'm going to be tackling sort of LGBTQ issues that should be taught and introduced in sex education. A lot of people were saying that the concept of consent was not included, so therefore I am obviously going to be tackling that as well. Things in terms of they were never demonstrated how to use contraception. I unfortunately am not going to be doing that on these videos, but I'm going to be explaining what should happen in school to help facilitate that. Different things like that I'm going to be tackling within each of the videos. First of all, I just want to explain why sex education might not be tackled so greatly in school, and I think it basically stems from the idea that sex within society is still stigmatised. It's classed as dirty, certain things that young people should not be introduced to, but very much should be shied away from sometimes, especially in one of the findings that I've discovered. A lot of people within Catholic schools especially weren't really introduced to the idea of sex too much and were encouraged just to abstain really. That was the main thing, and obviously we've all seen that Mean Girls quote, you have sex and then you die. Basically it was that sort of thing, which is not great. It's not great for teachers and educators to be sort of saying that young people won't be doing this, so I'm not going to be teaching it. That's not happening, so we need to tackle it. We need to educate people. The stigma that's still attached to menstruation, still seen as gross, but actually as annoying and as painful as it can be, menstruation, it is actually a beautiful process that a woman can go through, though it does make some vomit. Never great. So the idea of stigma, what this term means, it was coined by Goffman, and he basically explained it's a stain or a mark that renders the individual's body or character as defective. So it's a negative connotation, this idea of sex having this stigma attached to it within society. And if you want to get historical about it, thinking about stigma and coining and marking someone's character as defective, it was actually practiced within the ancient Greek times. Ancient Greeks would brand and mark criminals and slaves to sort of exemplify and physicalize their status within society, and people reacted with disgust to them. So that's interesting that this idea of branding and marking someone as defective because they were a criminal is now being conflated with the ideas of menstruation or sex in general within society. Subsequently from this, Patricia Marino basically goes on to talk about how our beliefs in society are underpinned with our background, whether that be religious beliefs, cultural norms, family situations. They all derive from the backgrounds that you're in. So maybe some people were raised that, oh, sex is amazing, woo, we're going to be really free and open, and explain everything you need to know about sex, and actually that was going to be really helpful for an adolescent learning about puberty and what's going to happen and what's expected. Whereas other people, it could be super religious people that are quite conservative. They don't want to be explaining certain sex things to their family. Therefore, the children are very naive to sex, and that can that's not helpful for someone that's going to be growing up and eventually is going to be open in that world, but they're not well informed. They don't know about consent. They don't know what it is. Some people don't realise that you can be in a relationship with someone and you can have had sex before with them, and for some reason, if you just don't want to have sex with them one day and yet the partner still pressures you to have sex, that is sexual assault, and that because you're not consenting that time. Sometimes that blows people's mind, and that scares me that people don't know that. What I want to pose to people is, what do we think when we think of sex? It could be the idea of puberty that springs to mind. First of all, that idea of women growing breasts, erections that might just spring up from nowhere, or it could not be about the biological sense of the word sex, being born as a female or born as a male. It could be more about that pleasure side to it, sexual intercourse. It could be the idea of love and nurturing someone within that relationship. Therefore, you demonstrate that you love someone by having sex with them. There's completely different ways of understanding sex. And this is what this whole series is about, informing young students what sex is. I'm not saying that I know all of the answers, I'm just tackling what I have been given, the research that I have found. One of the things that I really want to do in my school, in terms of the PSHE and sex education curriculum as a whole, is things like bringing out external people to do workshops with students so they can be fully informed as well. Carry on watching the series. It's going to be coming out throughout the next several weeks, tackling a different topic each time. And if you guys want to comment down on what your experience of sex education was within schools, please do so. It's so helpful to know. I've had lots of great things as well, so it's not just about bashing educators and sex that taught sex education, because it can be quite difficult for some teachers too. I've had some great things that I will also share within the set videos for each week too. And if you want to see a certain topic tackled that I've not mentioned, or you have your own input, of course, comment on what your tip is or what you think would have been done better. So this is the end of this week's introduction video to the series Let's Talk About Sex that I'm doing here on Learning with Liz. Like, comment and subscribe if you like the idea too, and I hope to see you in the next oncoming weeks.